Well, it shows also, like, you're allowed to feel, and you're allowed to have days where you're sad and not have any explanation why you're sad, you know, and you're allowed to talk to someone about that, and for them to be like, oh, instead of being like, chin up, mate, like, it's not that bad, them being like, oh, yeah, I feel like that sometimes too, and then suddenly you don't feel so isolated in it.
Taylor, lovely
Hello.
Taylor, who's a podcaster. Taylor, Ed Taylor.
Hey, Taylor, how you doing?
He does the Waffle Shop podcast, which is really, really important because this is about mental health and it's about men's mental health, and it was something that really helped you. It saved you, didn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Like a few years back, I nearly lost my mum to an operation that went wrong. And then kind of the process of like coming to terms with everything and kind of keeping my career going, I took control of like the family home and then had to care for my younger sister. Like my mental health just kind of hit rock bottom. Just before the pandemic, I was having therapy sessions and they obviously had to come to an end. So instead of running that risk of going backwards and feeling scared of what was going to happen, I started talking, or I started waffling about everything, and yeah, it's completely changed my life, changed my career. It's insane what it's done for me.
I was speaking to my wife about this because she goes on girls' nights. At some point in the night, someone always cries, and I was speaking to her about this, and I was like, well, is that like a weird thing that you go and she's like, no, because we actually talk to each other and we say, how are you? And most of the time, one of us is having a bad time. And I find whenever I go on boys' nights, it's just hey, let's have some beers, blah, 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 and I found myself the other night, I went on a lads' night, and I just asked my mate, like, how he was doing, and I started really hearing about what was going on, and it's the same thing, and this is what's great about the podcast element of it, is so many people are quiet about it, and because they're kind of embarrassed because they're like, well, I don't think anyone else is feeling like this, so I can't be the downer of the party and the guy that brings this up. And you having a podcast is their way of sort of listening into something, because I'm sure you have lots of people on different weeks talking about stuff, and it's a way to be secretly involved and know that someone out there feels exactly the same way that you do, and then suddenly you don't feel so alone, and then maybe you can talk to people about it because you know that a lot of other people are feeling the same thing.
That's exactly what it did to me. It was like when I first put out that first episode, it was so overwhelming to have all this kind of fever, like, I feel like this too, like you're not on your own, and it kind of almost felt like a little bit silly in a way that I didn't start talking about it sooner. But this kind of stuff is just proof that talking about how you're feeling and getting things off your chest, like the ripple effect it has had, like even now, like to my lad mates and even to like this community, like it's kind of built like throughout the city, and I kind of want to say like worldwide. Like I've been able to make friends like from people from all walks of life around the world, and we've all got this like, how are you doing? And it's not like we're asking because like we're just being nosy. It's like we genuinely care.
Well, it shows also, like, you're allowed to feel, and you're allowed to have days where you're sad and not have any explanation why you're sad, you know, and you're allowed to talk to someone about that, and for them to be like, oh, instead of being like, chin up, mate, like it's not that bad, them being like, oh yeah, I feel like that sometimes too, and then suddenly you don't feel so isolated in it.
And it's so wonderful that these days that everybody is talking about mental health issues, that it's not, people don't frown on it. If somebody says, you know what, I'm having a bad day, not everybody has to go on Instagram and go, well, hey,
because
look.
everyone has a bad everyone has a bad day. Like, there's no one out there. The thing is, like, with health issues, there's, you know, probably like 2 out of 10 people will have like physical health issues, and they are obviously quite serious. But with mental health, like, it's everyone. Every single one of my friends has bouts of real sadness, and they just can't explain why. And it's everyone you meet. And what I've learned is everyone that you meet throughout the day is going through something, and you have no idea what they're going through. And when I see people like be rude to someone or nasty to someone or like short with someone, I'm like, you don't know what they're going through right now. They like, there's sometimes I'll like speak to someone and they'll be like, oh, my mum's like terminally at the moment, I'm having to hold her hand going to do this like the whole time, and I'll just be seeing someone be rude to them, and they've like totally held it together and whatever. But you just have to be nice to everyone because you don't know what they're going through.
Oh, I completely agree with you. Kindness is the key. Laughter's the best medicine. Taylor, you keep going with your podcast. I think it's fantastic what you're doing. I really do.
There's one thing I've got to ask though, because music is one of my biggest coping mechanisms. Supermarket Flowers for me is that song that really kind of, when I'm in my feels, it pulls that emotion out of me for me. So thank you for writing such a brilliant song. Can you remember like the first song that you ever heard that kind of made you cry, or like what song kind of pulls that emotion out in you?
Yeah, it was Vincent by Don McLean, and I remember that so I remember that so clearly because I remember not even knowing who Vincent van Gogh was. I was probably like 6 or 7 and crying at that song, and then
It just gave me goosebumps.
yeah, no, I vividly remember, and then like as a kid, like. I think having a good cry sometimes is like a really great thing. So I would put that song on just to cry to it. And I would just put it on and just let emotion out and listen to that song. And it still has the same effect on me now. I think there's certain songs that are like that. There's a song by this wonderful singer who's actually just passed away called Justin Townsend, who we had the same tour manager in America, and he played me this song like in like 2012. And it was basically about he had a really rocky relationship with his dad, and the song is basically I'll sing it now, but it's called Mama's Eyes, and it's basically about him seeing everyone sees his dad in him. And he goes, "I am my father's son. I've never known when to shut up, and I ain't fooling no one. I am my father's son. We don't see eye to eye, and I'd be the first to admit I've never tried. It sure hurts, but it should hurt sometimes. We don't see eye to eye. I was a young man when I first felt the pleasure and the pain of a sin, and I went down the same road as my old man, but I was younger then. Now it's 3 a.m. and I'm standing in the kitchen, smoking my last cigarette. Strike a match and I see my reflection in the mirror in the hall, and I say to myself, I got my mama's eyes, her long thin frame, and I smile, and I still see wrong from right, 'cause I got my mama's eyes.
Oh, wow.
But that one always brings, because if you know the story of the relationship between him and his dad, and the fact that he sort of sees all of these things in himself, but then because he's got his mum's eyes, and the line is like, I can still see wrong from right because I got my mum's eyes. It's so beautiful, so beautiful.